item here addresses different Democrats, members of the media, some voters, obviously, Chuck Schumer, and various other concerned Democrats of high participation levels. The item here we're going to deal with all due respect, but the Crosby for President campaign, the clear understanding that for more than a year I've been laying out irrefutable evidence involving acts of war against my campaign. Now, the understanding that at this point in time an entire campaign fleet has basically been destroyed or lost, even though SAR has it tracked. We can recover these items, and the items of national security have always been of number one priority, but again, we've had no cooperation from the state of California to get those emergency teams that we need in the volume we need out there to retrieve that national security information. The mass dereliction of duty and the highly questionable intent of various high-ranking members of California leadership brings about deep understanding that apparently some people are just not quite getting this. Some Democrats have had information passed, and of course, over this long period of time, I've been trying to be as respectful as possible to various understanding. But the reality that, for instance, Julie Su has committed acts of war against my campaign, to directly attack the finances of a candidate and a candidate's archival holdings. The archive itself has multifaceted extensions. The campaign section is an extension of other archival interest. So we deal with artifacts, national security information, other areas that are of extreme importance. Now, there are three specific areas that basically you're not allowed to attack an archive, or you're facing death penalty charges. These are items that are in the Constitution and articles. These are mandatory items. So the active war part deals with, we can start at the basic no-brainer area where Congress clearly ordered for payment to be made to various parties. So the actions of what Julie Su did was to invent a maze of blacklisting runaround telephone programs as she basically invented a mechanism to throw $31 billion outside the country to non-verifiable entities. This brings about enormous amounts of questions, obviously far beyond whether she was just trying to get money to people to come to the United States that she thought were more apt to become socialist or Democrats and vote Democratic. I'm a person of ethics, and it doesn't matter which party is stepping way out of the ethical box. We have to have the same criteria respective to the ethical lines, holding the ethical lines. So as we're at this point, there's just so much more evidence, it's mind-boggling, The fleet was scheduled to be on the road, 14 RVs, starting out in Los Angeles over a year ago. That would have effectively had 1 million plus people a day getting exposure to my name, to the campaign, the website links, and it was designed that way. It was deliberately designed that way, to be that way. So we're talking a year, 365 plus days of not having 1 million people seeing those RVs, where they would drive down the road and be on the freeway and go, oh wow, 1, 2, 3, 4 RVs, all Michael Crosby, wow. And then drive a little further, wow, 1, 2, 3, 4 more Michael Crosby RVs, wow. And then drive a little further, wow, 4 more, wow. And then see yet again another one, just says, I guess this guy's running for office. This is a no-brainer. The questions about how some people decide to win tactically, of whether or not they're participating in attacking, committing acts of war against other presidential candidates. Is this how people win elections? To eliminate possible parties who are competing? There are deep questions over this, obviously. The reality of the articles, acts of war disqualify the presidential candidate, basically. And it doesn't just disqualify the candidate, it disqualifies the entire ticket. The entire ticket, Biden's entire ticket at this point is disqualified from running again on this basis. And the array of high crimes, misdemeanors, and treason charges against some of these parties, that's really a big mess sorting out. It's actually quite large because, again, archives have been seriously damaged. National security information, we now believe, has ended up outside of the country in several different countries. This means we now have to get emergency teams to basically retrieve this national security information, literally in foreign territory. It's a must-do item. There's no way around this. And the despicable behavior of those parties, the AG of California, the Secretary of State, their actions can't be excused. Those parties are facing very high charges, and the articles again are inescapable. So a presentation before Congress means that basically the delegates for California would all be seized. They would be seized and say, okay, this presentation renders these basically parties, these delegates, inert. That brings about, we'd have to select new delegates. The transparency item there, calling of emergency elections, these deep questions about how that will work. There's different procedures for that to keep transparency. But the underlying understanding, the law is clear. It says that all these matters must be resolved before the voting is allowed to continue. Before the counting of the voting or the certification of the vote. So the concept that early on that the very first declared presidential candidate gets knocked out of the race by acts of war, by high-ranking leadership in California, this is way what some people would call into treason territory. And the compensative factor, compensation must occur. This is the law. It has to occur before. There has to be a reasonable amount of time for the candidate to basically be able to explain to the voters what has transpired. Share that evidence. Go on the media. We're talking enormous amounts of money. To be able to convey this, have new ballots printed, have ballots basically recalled. New ballots have to be printed. Basically, we have to call for a special election to remedy and repair this problem. And apparently, see, the thing is, what I'm talking about, this is the law. These are the laws. This is a constitution. These people can jump up and down with their little state laws all they want. Those little laws are all excuses, they're all BS, and they won't fly before the United States Congress. When the articles are pulled out, the evidence is added up, Congress is going to look at this and say, yeah, this evidence is definitive. So the factor of Democrats is they need to come out of fairyland in their brains and understand what's going on right now. And some of them have, as some of my information and evidence is floating through. And again, there's information still under shield. There's a lot of information that still hasn't been released yet concerning all of this. The problems with the illegal actions of various judges. We're looking at over 200 convictions. At this point, it looks like we're going to have 14 judges convicted of various crimes and whatnot. And we have almost, I believe it's right around 90 police officers and agents that are going to be convicted for aiding and abetting. So, the importance here of understanding that the evidence has had a substantial, more than enough released. It's all on X, and that's going to be part of a model. That's history. That'll be part of language models forever and always. And this situation where people are, why didn't somebody tell me, excuse me, these people did this mass destruction, it's going to cost billions of dollars to repair all of this. If again, we can finally get some cooperation, but no rational communication has been received from the California Democratic Party yet. We need that. We need that. These people really need to do the right thing. They need to accept responsibility for what some of their people have done and understand how the Constitution and the Articles deal with people who have committed acts of war. You know, they haven't even offered a formal apology to me yet. And the concept that for one moment that they think that voting could be counted after acts of war have been committed in a fleet, an entire fleet, 14 RVs, boom. These people have to understand, and as I keep putting stuff through, obviously there are people that have looked at the information, and it would be a kind of a no-brainer to say that people start reading this, and they read it, and all of a sudden, and they're looking at the images, and it starts clicking, and all of a sudden it's OMG, 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 so the reality of the situation, understanding this is hitting in, we have some Democrats trying to figure out what's going on. The media, some of the media knows that I've already sent them material. They know that things have been disclosed. They've read some of the X disclosures. They've got the Twitter, they've got some of the email stuff that was sent, So this is where we're at, so as we have different Democrats like Chuck Schumer, have to understand, I'm a guy, I got a 240 IQ. AI says I am the best presidential candidate. In fact, the best presidential candidate choice in the history of the world. Nobody's going to beat me installing AI. Nobody's going to come close. My commitment to treaties, Ukraine, and other items, to repair the economy, to restore the constitutional rights of people to be able to build their own homes. I have very serious legal material that's associated with that archive concerning restoring people's rights where phony laws were constructed. The concept that we have a system that has fallen from grace and does not make all people's labor 100% bankable is lunacy. I have a lot more material. The thing is, people have to grab hold. I mean, people, what are your qualifications? I'll look you straight-faced and say, look, I don't have a week to lecture you about the extensive qualifications that I have and sit there talking till I'm blue in the face. I got a 240 IQ, let's start there. I run an archive. I've been working on AI concepts that are mind-boggling, designing AI concepts 20 years ago that wouldn't even be able to work in a computer because the chips wouldn't be manufactured for another 20 or 30 years. It's only now that some of the heavy work that I did for economic mass modeling and all this stuff is going to be able to start working and deal with the economy changes and all this stuff. And I put out extensive code material about various fixes, repairs of Social Security, on and on and on. It's extensive. It's extensive. In fact, a lot of the arguments bring forth and embarrass many leaders. So there has to be, we need some rational thinking from Democrats, and they really need to understand that I am the best presidential candidate. And people, they do need to think about getting me that funding. It's the law. I have to have that money restored. We have to notify voters of what's happened, the acts of war. There has to be all of this media transition. It's a lot of money. I have to be apologized to. I haven't even been apologized to yet. Over these items, we're going to have to get prosecutions and all this other stuff. I've declared full panel rights. I've selected 7 out of 20 for the panel. But, again, this is a bigger process. It's harder to get it going when you don't have funding and when basically you're dealing with coming under intermittent attacks, and getting shot at. I've got people that have been shooting at me This is a situation that basically I have to put myself into a private protection program to protect myself from RICO threats. It's kind of sort of the way this works. And when you have members of government in breaches there that are participants, this just changes the whole game, around that way. So, again, I'm awaiting rational communications, because it's simple. The stuff I'm going to file or have already filed block a whole bunch of stuff. People need to get their head out of fairyland. Their ideas aren't going to fix things. You want to go someplace, you need to come to me. Hi, how you doing? Name's Michael Crosby. I'm candidate for POTUS 2024. I look forward to your communications.